The problem about India is the south of India is seeing a shrinking of the birth rate. Fertility is 1.8. East of India, Bengal is come to 1.7, Punjab is 1.6. So we're seeing the east and the west, some states, and the south shrink in population.
The center part
is growing at about 2.3, 2.4. It's coming down, but India is already at 2. The data extrapolated to today is 2. And 2 is below fertility, below replacement. For India, the replacement will be 2.3, not 2.1, because we have a higher infant mortality rate, we have a higher maternal mortality rate.
But those are coming down too.
So they're coming down, but it'll take another 5-10 years, because in the heartland states, for them to come down, it is coming down. In the south, it's coming down very rapidly. In the heartland, it has to come down. And the next thing which is very important for us to understand is when you look at the demographic changes of this country, all sections of people are seeing a demographic decline. We wrote an article about education and Muslim women, because based on the National Health Survey 4, which is for a period, I think up to 2013-14 or 2014-15. Okay, it's for 10 years, 2003-4 to 2013-14. Now, what do we see? Literacy in Muslim women has gone up by 25%. The fertility has come down by 25%. It's come down from 3.5
entirely expected.
3.5 to 2.5.
Yes.
And their fertility is the same as people of the scheduled caste group, in the scheduled caste group. So it's a function of the education of the girl child, is a function of access to good health services that is driving fertility. So the good news is fertility is coming down for India. Fertility is coming down among all the groups. Some groups are 10 years behind the majority group. And the Jains fertility has come down to 1.2. 1.2, there's no hope for the Jains.
Right.
We're not going to have Jains after 50, 60 years, maybe of any number.
Right.
The Sikhs fertility is 1.5. They're also maybe emigrating more, going to the holy land of the United States.
Right.
So the emigrating more are going to the UK to conquer the UK or whatever it is they want to, or maybe go to Pakistan, whatever they want to do. But the key issue is fertility is coming down, then fertility is there. And it is happening all across. So population is not a problem. Now, the economic disparity is the southern states, Maharashtra, Andhra Pradesh, Karnataka, Tamil Nadu and everything, have a per capita income 2.5 times the north. So the disparity in education, disparity in per capita income between the south and the north is very high. And the north is not able to get the industries, not able to get the investment to create those kind of jobs. Now, if you look at the people passing out of college, 26% of Indians in the age group of 18 to 23 are in college, is growing at 3% a year. It will reach 50% by 2030. We have 35 million young people in college, it will go to 70 million by 2030. Okay, those are the projections given by FICCI. I headed a group which made the projection. It's coming true so far. We did it 4 years back, and it will happen. Now, we are seeing more graduates come out of the north than the south, where the population is larger. UP's GER is about 25, and UP is 210 million people, right? BR is only 11, and it's a gone case. I don't know how they will ever come up, because they're not investing in higher education, and people only have to emigrate, which they're doing in a large number. So you are seeing larger number of graduates, and you are seeing the men emigrate to the south, and the girls stay back. So the labor participation rate of women in India has come down dramatically in the last 10 years, because more educated women are coming out of colleges, they're coming out of college in the north, and there are no jobs there and jobs south. Now Nisha and I, we made a study, and the study proves that in the southern state, the jobs in the formal sector are a very large part of the people coming out of colleges, and Karnataka and Maharashtra have more jobs than people coming out of colleges. That means other people are getting formal jobs. But today we see a migration from the northeast to the south, from the east to the south, and from the heartland to the south.
A huge migrant worker internal to the country.
Yes. Kerala has got 9% Hindi-speaking population. The BRs are coming and settling down in Kerala. Whole villages are coming. They're marrying the Malayali women. And Hindi signs are coming up in Kochi. Never happened before. By 2030, this 9% can become 25%. Now the key issue is, what happens if people of a different culture come to all these places like a Tamil Nadu, like a Kerala, like a Karnataka, and especially Kerala, where the local population is smaller and then other people dominate. So there is going to be a lot of conflict. There's going to be a lot of issues.
Like in Bombay.
Like in Bombay. Bombay, it happened earlier, except that people are richer, so that they're not fighting for the necessities of life it happened 30 years ago. So you're seeing this kind of change happen. So now, India is a country where labor-intensive work is concentrated in the south, not where the labor is. India is a country where cost of living and cost of labor is going up in the south where industry is. And India is a state where more people need jobs in the north than in the south. And
So there's kind of an imbalance.
the imbalance which is very, very large.
Mismatch.
And the imbalance could be take political. For example, the south is population is 30% in 2011. It will come down to 25% by 2021 of India. But in the north, there are lesser MPs per million population than in the south. And the number of MPs were frozen based upon the 1971 census in 1978. And in 2004, it was frozen till the census of 2031. Now, when you have a democracy where every person has an equal vote, it implies that the number of seats for which the vote should be proportionate.
Yes.
So you have constituency where maybe 10 lakh people, constituency where there are 25 lakh people. And this imbalance is going to come. This political issue of all this kind of transition is going to happen. And on top of that, we are seeing technological disruption happening, automation happening.
Yes.
In the banking sector, banks' balance sheet have gone up 10 times in 15 years. Because they're growing at 15% a year.
Right.
In 15 years, there'll be 10 times, right? But employment has gone up only 5%. So in those service areas where automation is coming in, we're seeing the employment intensity go down. So in those areas where manufacturing, where automation is coming in, employment intensity is going down. And in those areas where distribution is there, employment intensity is up. So that even though we can grow at 7 to 8% for the next 10 years, employment intensity of the GDP, today employment intensity could be going up by 5%, maybe 4%, could come down, but we'll have enough jobs. The problem will be the kind of jobs that we want and the kind of jobs that are created are very difficult. We made a study out of 12 million jobs that are created in this country every year, only maybe 10-15% are good, well-paying jobs for the middle class. The balance jobs pay 15,000-20,000 rupees, not enough to create a family. And this is creating stress. So India is creating enough jobs, largely in the south. 60% of jobs may be in the south.
So there is regional, demographic, labor intensive versus capital intensive versus technology intensive, all kind of moving parts that need to be rethought.
Rethought. And I don't think people are thinking about this mix, looking at data, making projections.
So this is the job for Niti Aayog. I mean, supposedly, they are the ones who should.
But Niti should look at the system level. They're looking at small part.
Yes.
AI will have a program. They're looking at program level.
Yeah.
This is not program level. These are mission levels.
Yes.
So we must look at the mission levels and see where thinking. That's why this country requires many more institutions to think about it, to debate about it, come out with positions, educate our political leaders, educate our academics, everything. And there's no thinking on a grand scale.
Yes.
So we need the Indian grand economic narrative.
Yes.
What India should be in 2030, what will expand, what is state. It has to be based on what India as a collection of states. It cannot be India driving it from Delhi, because Delhi is distant from India. Delhi is lost. In my view, Delhi is lost because Delhi is no longer in control of what India happens, because the states are growing at a different pace and Delhi is not able to understand how the states are growing, where the states are going. For example, the state of West Bengal is beyond control. It doesn't listen to Delhi. It has its own logic. It's like a different country.
Do you feel that the tax too much at the center, not tax collection, states are not doing it? Like in the US, the state have more tax.
No.
More
After the 14th Finance Commission, 42% central taxes go to the states, and now in the last 2 years, states spend more than the center. It is shifted 3 years back when Modi came. Modi did that, and of course, JNU doesn't give him credit. They go on bashing him unnecessarily because they don't look at data. I don't think the JNU professor ever look at data, just shoot from the mouth. Ideologues. And dying ideologues, old ideologues, because, there's no more Julawalas coming there. But the fact remains, Modi did it because as a chief minister he came, and today the states spend much more than the center. So here we are, Rajiv. India is in a state of flux with rapid changes in the demography, rapid changes in the economy, disparate growth or diverse growth all over the place, diverging in the states, not converging. Delhi not thinking about India and understanding all this thing, not enough thinking going
Too
on.
much arrogance.
And in the midst of this,
Yes.
in the midst of this, that we have the technological disruption caused by digitization, caused by AI coming, and we have these two big giants globally, China and America, trying to dominate the world. And in the midst of this, these 10 big companies trying to dominate. Now look at these metrics on the global scale. It's unbelievable. Now something has to come.
Yes.
Now, what could be the solutions? I'll take 5 minutes. What could be the solutions? One, I think the United States was first to come to terms with itself about digitization, about the future, about AI, and understand the role of China. China should not become a hegemon. China should be a great power. China is a great power. It should behave like a great power, not threaten anybody else, and remake itself in the picture of what it has to be. Now, Europe is dying. Europe has no future in Europe. Europe does not know where it is. It is more stuck about its own problem. Europe has to decide for itself what has to be done, and I don't know what they're thinking, because the UK is in crisis, not able to find its own place. Germany is seeing Merkel go down. Macron is out of control. Macron doesn't have France under control. There's anarchy happening on the streets of Paris. Eastern Europe is in flux, and Putin is sitting there looking at Russia and not knowing what to do, because what role will Russia play in the future? They should have a role. The Middle East is in turmoil. Young prince come up, wants to transform Syria and all the jihadis. They're going to focus on Wahhabism and focus on that. And Africa has got its own challenges. Sub-Saharan Africa growing faster, rest of Africa not growing. Population growth rates in many countries out of control. Japan is shrinking as the power. Southeast Asia is sandwiched between China and India. They have to remake the role and see what to do. They're trying to get these giants together. And then you got India undergoing such rapid change. Unbelievable change, not understanding what the change is, what has to be done to take care of it, tackling yesterday's problem with a good prime minister, a prime minister to understand, but needs to be supported. And the debate is all about some things which don't matter anymore, and the debate about the future is very less unless you come and take some TV interviews to some people who can understand about the future. So I think the world is an interesting place. And like you said, in the midst of all that, you have this unbelievable technological disruption with AI driving the world and transforming the world. So we don't know.
So you and I have a lot more thinking and talking to do. This is what the conclusion is. And I really thank you for this.
Thank you, Rajiv.
It's always a pleasure, because you can really shake things up, and we need that. We need people who can shake things up. And rather than feeling threatened, people should stimulate, people should join this kind of a debate. So thank you once again.
Thank you.
Always a pleasure.
Thank you.